buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast. The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Well, good Monday morning to you. It is the Michael Dukes Show, broadcasting live across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or translator, and around the world at michaeldukeshow.com on the interwebs. Hello, and how are you? We got a full show lined up for you this morning. We are we're going to be diving into it, some heartfelt stuff, and then some good old plain politics stuff. That's how we're going to roll today. We're going to start off here in hour one with some headlines, and then we're going to pick it up with Elishaba Doerksen, who is the author of the brand new book, Out of the Wilderness. If you have been familiar with any kind of the crazy scandal stuff that we've seen here in the state of Alaska, you will remember the name Papa Pilgrim, and Elishaba is she is the oldest of 15 children born to Papa Pilgrim, and the one that basically had a lot of the she was the face of a lot of the abuse that went on in that family, and this story is a story of overcoming and courage, and how she was finally able to leave that family, and what has gone on since. It is a fascinating tale. I got the book late last week and was able to read a chunk of it over the weekend, and I got to tell you, this woman has got the heart of a lion. I don't even know how to put it any differently. She did some amazing things and put up with some amazing things. And I'm looking forward to talking with her here this morning about her book, about some of her experiences. And this has got some hard reads in it, some hard things to hear, and to find out that there are people out there that, that there are just some people that are just wrong. And this is the story of her overcoming that. And I look forward to talking to her here in hour one this morning. In hour two, we're going to be talking with Chris Bai, who is a candidate for Congress, running against Don Young. As I said earlier, that race is going to get pretty crowded, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with the ranked choice voting and the jungle primary and everything else. But Chris Bai will be joining us to talk about what's going on and how he thinks he can make a difference in what's happening in Congress. And so we're going to talk with him about that and his decision to run and everything else. So that'll be hour two of the program this morning. I have to start off this morning with a little bit of a memoriam. There was a listener down in the peninsula who I had the opportunity to meet several times during the last few years. Every time I had a meet and greet or something going on down in the peninsula, Larry would show up, Larry Pinnell, and he would come on board and always share some good thoughts, some wit, some witticism, and he was always fun to have in the chat room. Last week, Larry passed away, and he had been battling with cancer in the past and had overcome it, but he was not able to stop it this last time. So I'm assuming it's either the cancer or the COVID complications that he was suffering from. But I was just informed late last night that Larry passed away this last week. And my heart's out to his family. He was a great guy. And so we'll dedicate the show this morning to Larry and to all of those out there who are fighting those things that are trying to keep us down, cancer or COVID or whatever it is. But Larry was a heck of a guy. And I want to say a special thank you to Dwayne Bannock, who reached out to me last night and told me about this. I had not heard this, and I had not noticed that Larry had not been in the chat room late last week. So it's a tough situation. But Larry, we love you and miss you, and we hope that the pain is gone. That's all we can say. So today's show dedicated out to Larry Pinnell, who was a great listener, one of my first supporters. Larry came out and met me at one of our very, very first meet and greets when we first got the show started down on the peninsula. He was maybe one of, maybe a dozen people that showed up. There wasn't a whole lot of people that showed up because we were fairly fresh and new. And but he came, and we had a good long chat on that first day. And ever since then, Larry has been a very loyal listener, and I think a loyal friend. And I appreciate that, Larry. So Godspeed and God bless to Larry Pinnell down there on the peninsula, and to his family, relatives, and friends down there. Again, our heart goes out to you over this. All right. So today's Larry's show, and he would tell me to talk about Mongo and everything else. That was his nickname that he would go by sometimes because he loved that whole Blazing Saddle shtick. So let's jump into this and take a look at what's going on around the state and around the country before we jump into our conversation with Elishaba Doerksen and talk about her book as well. Some of the big news coming out of the legislature, of course, it's day 42, day 43 now, day 43 today. And the legislature is taking up all the important bills that we could possibly take up. Interestingly enough, one of the bills is SJR 16, which actually came about back in January. And it was a bill that would impose a few sanctions on Russia over it's a joint resolution. It's not a bill. It's a resolution asking for Russia to lift the sanctions on Alaskan seafood. And it's now being put forward to ask the president to immediately seek and secure an end to the embargo imposed by Russia on the seafood markets from abroad, or place a reciprocal embargo on Russian seafood entering the United States. Now, with the fact that Russia is now at war with the Ukraine, and we're bogged down with that, and there's all kinds of other sanctions going on, no real clear picture as to what's going to happen with that. Although it does appear, according to Suzanne Downing from Must Read, she reports that Senator Sullivan and Murkowski are considering introducing a ban to place a sanction on all Russian seafood imports anyway. On top of everything else, it would be one more thing to hit them with in light of what's going on with the embargo. A second important bill, I'm using the word important in quotes on that, is a bill that has come out from Guarantar of Anchorage. She's getting a hearing on her new equity bill. It's the outdoor equity bill. It's a bill that's going to apparently try and establish equity amongst people who want to go outdoors and utilize the wilderness, the stuff. She said HCR 4 reflects a nationwide desire to establish specific government initiatives to ensure that our public outdoor recreation areas are accessible, affordable, and safe for all Alaskan, regardless of their backgrounds or income levels. However, despite an increasingly diverse population, minorities are still underrepresented in national forest visitation statistics, Research shows that it's not due to inherent disinterest in the outdoors, but a disparities in other factors such as information distribution, perception of safety, and affordability. To which I start asking the question of, what? I mean, information distribution, they can get information regardless of who you are, or where you come from, the color of your skin, or the amount of money that you make. We all get information at the same spot. If we want information on the public parks or whatever, we go to the local website. Or safety, perceptions of safety and affordability. She said she believes minorities cannot afford kayaks, skis, and tents, for instance, not to mention fat tire bikes. Well, but we've all done without a lot of those things and still enjoyed the outdoors. Now, there's no money associated with this. It calls for spending, but there's no fiscal note. And it was not referred to House Finance. And by comparison, last year, California spent $58 million in taxpayer funds for outdoor equity, where they were redistributed by the government under a program established in similar legislation in 2019. I don't know exactly what they're looking. She said Alaska should formally examine the disparities in its outdoor outreach efforts by creating a new position, which is called the new, Office of Outdoor Equity, housed in the Department of Natural Resources. That they should basically formally examine the disparities in its outdoor outreach efforts by creating this new position to make accessibility to our parks, trails, ski slopes, cabins, and waters more equitable. I mean, what? My brain hurts just thinking about that. I just don't even, but don't worry, this is an important bill. We're going to be talking about that. And then Adam Wool has decided that he hates the gig economy. He hates the gig economy so much that he's going to see if he can get it turned off here in Alaska. Well, not directly, but through taxation. He's offering a new tax bill that would tax the gig economy, like those people who rent their personal vehicles through the car-sharing app Turo. He said, that this is just unfair. They need to make all this stuff up. They need to, it adds a definition for new services providing private vehicles for rental programs. This would basically tax each and every one of those people who decided to make a little extra money by renting their vehicles through the app. Now, if it happens if this bill passes, Turo would probably just stop the app from working in the state of Alaska, because if people have to collect tax for Turo, federal tax law governs the company differently and treats those car owners more like employees than subcontractors. And it would basically end a good side gig, which would effectively end that extra money for about 1,200 people in Alaska who have rented or shared their vehicles through Turo or some other company. And if they're going to come after that, then next thing it'll be Vrbo, and it'll be Airbnb, and it'll be everything else. I mean, if it moves, you got to tax it. And even if it stops moving, you should tax it more. This is what we're working on right now. This and the fact that basically they're expecting all this influx in money from oil money because oil prices continue to rise. But they're not going to be giving it to us. No, they basically say we need to keep that for the future. We need to keep that for later. It's crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. Anyway, we're going to get into all this later on in the program. Meanwhile, Elishaba Doerksen is going to be joining us here in just a moment. We're going to talk with her about her new book called Out of the Wilderness, and her journey, the trials and tribulations of being the eldest daughter of Papa Pilgrim, and what did that mean, and how did she get away? It's going to be some interesting stuff. We're looking forward to talking with her here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show continues, broadcasting live across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and/or translator, and around the world at MichaelDukeShow.com on the internet. We'll be right back with more right after this.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, we're in the commercial break right now, broadcasting live on Facebook and YouTube and Twitch TV. Good morning and welcome back to the program. Appreciate you coming in and being part of it today. We are about to jump into it with Elishaba Doerksen and talk about her new book, Out of the Wilderness, which, again, as I said earlier, I got it late last week, and I got a chance to peruse through it a little bit this weekend. I didn't read the whole thing, but I read some sections and some excerpts, and some chilling stuff in here, man. Some really crazy things going on. You know, maybe you would have expected to hear something like this 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago, but to hear some of these things happening, I mean, when she talks about being in Fairbanks is exactly, I mean, while I was living there in Fairbanks, and to hear some of the things that were going on there just shocks me right down to the bone. Some crazy stuff. And we're going to talk with her about that here in just a moment as we join her. I think that she is, in fact, I think she's on board already and hanging out in the virtual green room. Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
How are
Michael?
you? How are you?
Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on board. I appreciate it. As I said, I haven't finished the book, but boy, the parts that I've read have really opened my eyes to some stuff, and I'm looking forward to talking with you here about this in just a moment. So if you'll hang out with us, we're in the commercial break. We're going to be back here in about 3 minutes, and we'll be ready to go, okay?
Okay, thank you.
So I recommend you drink my virtual coffee and eat my virtual donuts in the virtual green room, okay? I took all the calories out for you, so you don't have to worry about it.
Okay, well, I'll be sipping on my coffee.
All right, sip on that coffee. Just leave me a chocolate cruller. They're my favorite. Hey, I see my daughter's in the chat room this morning. Good morning, Ryle. And happy birthday to Ann. I saw that Ann was it was her birthday. Good morning, Ann. Happy birthday to you. And again, the show today dedicated to our friend of the show, Larry Pinnell, who passed away last week. And again, special thanks going out to tall, dark, and handsome Dwayne Bannock, who dropped me the note last night that Larry had passed away. And I appreciate that because I had not. I quite honestly, the end of last week, I was so busy I didn't notice that Larry wasn't in the chat room last week. The end of last week. So apparently he passed away, and it's heartbreaking. I really enjoyed Larry and his commentary in the chat room. So it's just hopefully he and his family were good to go. Know the peace of the Lord, as they say. Okay. Coming up in hour 2, Chris Bai will be joining us. We got some other things we can talk about in the headlines that are coming up. Everything from down in the in Juneau to what's happening here as well. Yeah, and all the stuff going on in the Ukraine. Crazy stuff going on in the Ukraine as well. We could talk about all that as we go forward. Hopefully your weekend was good. You guys were all ready, and I spent a lot of time with the kids. We played some D&D. We hung out, watched some movies. And basically got a little bit of a respite there. I did my normal sleeping jag where I got a chance to sleep, 10, 12 hours, which is always refreshing for me. Oh, man. All right. Let's see what else is going on in the chat room this morning. Instead of introducing new bills, how about the Alaska legislature? Hear the ones that have been sitting in committee for years and work through those. Well, I mean, it's a unique idea. You're right, baby. It should. This is what happened. This is what happens when you vote for the wrong people, says Richard. This should be declared Firearms Week in support of Ukraine. God bless them as they fight. Did you see the videos of them passing out all the machine guns to the citizens? I mean, I keep waiting for that to happen here. I would love to see that happen. It was just crazy stuff. Let's see. Good morning. Sad news on Larry. Yep. Good morning, you happy people. Good morning. All right. Look at that. I'm all caught up. Here, ready to go. All right. Elishaba Doerksen is going to be joining us here in just a moment. and we're going to dive into this. Please like and share this show. Like and share the video. Like and follow the show page. If you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell. Let's kick this off. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Let's do it. All right, welcome back to the program. Common sense is what we try and bring to the show every day, 5 days a week. We are here to educate, entertain, and enlighten, the 3 E's. That's what we try and do every day. This morning, it's education and enlightenment this morning as we sit down with Elishaba Doerksen, who was the oldest of 15 children born to the ex-hippies of Robert and Karina Hale. You know them as Papa Pilgrim and Country Rose. This story, which is the name of the book, is called Out of the Wilderness, was pretty eye-raising or hair-raising, eye-opening and hair-raising, I guess is what I would say. I didn't get a chance to read all of it, but the sections that I did read really make me... it made me appreciate my family and the way I was raised and everything else, and it made me appreciate the strength of this woman who has had the courage not only to escape that situation, but now to lay it all down in a book and let others learn from her struggles and everything else. And Elishaba Doerksen joins us right now on the program. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Michael. Thanks for inviting me, and thanks for taking the time to read my book, because I know it's a long one. It's over 400 pages, but a lot of readers tell me that it's a page-turner.
Oh, it is. It is. I got started in it, and, every time I'd get interrupted, I'd be like, I got to go. Where did I put that book? I got to go back to it. There's some interesting stuff in here, and, again, what hits close to home to me, as I was just mentioning, is that, that some of these things can happen, I guess I would say in the modern era, where you would think, oh, maybe this happened, 40, 50, 60 years ago. But, you arrived in Fairbanks right there. I mean, my wife and I had been married 10 years at that point. We had our first children. We were right there, probably drove past you on the road, didn't even know it, didn't even know what was going on. And it's kind of a shocking tale. So let's get started here in this. Now, you started out in the Santa Cristos in New Mexico. That's where your life began. And so kind of walk us through just briefly a little bit of what was going on there and then the journey into Alaska.
Okay. Well, as I described in my book, Out of the Wilderness, after Papa got religion, he told my brothers and me one day that we weren't allowed to have toys, that they were graven images, and we were wicked, or they were wicked, if we pretended with them. So God wanted us to get rid of them.
Well, and I will say this: one of the things that came out of one of the passages that I caught really made me shake my head. And in fact, I think you actually posted about this on Facebook the other day, where you said, the abuse that you suffered at the hands of your father, he would later on use the word to try and justify keeping everything quiet and keeping it secret. I mean, here's a man who found religion and became so fervorous about it that he would twist it and bend it to his own whims, and that looks like just one of the first examples of that.
Yeah, because like my little doll named Betty and my little rabbit, and my brother had his dump truck and his little toys, and we had to throw them all into a feed sack and just because God said it was wrong, and take them to a dump in the local valley there and just throw the sack right over the hill and watch it fall into the trash.
Right.
Just remember crying all the way home. Why did I have to get rid of my little Betty?
Right.
God said she was evil.
Right. I mean, which again, how old were you at this time? When your father found religion, how old were you at that point?
Well, I was 3 when he got religion, and then we moved to the mountains. And when I was around, 3, 4 years old, and like this little story I just told was when I was 6, something like that.
Right.
So we moved to the mountains, and things kind of began to develop as my father gathered his little cult by, his own family.
Right. His own little, he was kind of growing his own little cult, his own little flock, his own little following. The common theme that I picked up as I skipped through the book, because I was going from section to section and jumping ahead quite a bit, but one of the things that I noticed that was a common theme throughout it was that he seemed to always be wanting to get further away from other people, to always be out and alone and just him and his family and be away from everything. And whether that was from the influence of people or the influence of the world, or I think at one point he'd even said, he's worried about the government looking in at what he was doing. And he really kind of became more and more reclusive, and was constantly trying to find a way to bring all you folks basically to take you out into the wilderness, not out of the wilderness, but into the wilderness, away from other people, and isolate you.
Yes, thanks for recognizing that, Michael. Definitely is what happened. We were isolated completely from the world, and what I thought of the world, it was just evil and wicked, and there was no way that I even wanted to be in the world, because I heard it was just going to suck me in and take me away from heaven.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, obviously that's, now we know that that's kind of the modus operandi of anything that's, kind of cult-like, is that it paints everything outside of the cult or the organization as evil and as other. And you started to, you of course were raised in that, so it's no surprise that you embraced that idea initially. When was your first inklings that the outside world may not have been as bad as you'd been taught? What was the first inkling?
I guess it was probably little bits at a time. When I was really little, if we hitchhiked to town, or we would be in a little store, or someone would offer me candy, or they would tell me, "Oh, you have beautiful blonde hair and blue eyes," which is funny because I have green eyes now. But it was kind of like those little tiny things. And then when people would do something kind, it definitely contradicted what my father was telling me.
Right. Well, and you were so far out of the world. I remember one of the things you were talking about is that somebody had offered to buy your family dinner at one point. And of course, you could barely read. Your brothers and sisters could barely read. I mean, they'd all given you menus, and you couldn't decide. You didn't know, what was. I don't think you knew what was what. What I read through the thing is that you basically didn't even understand what was on the menu. And at one point, you were asking them how they cooked, and you were so. This is in the 90s, and they said this microwave, and you're like. I guess you tell the story that you looked at it and said, "Okay, great. Where do you light the fire?" That's how far out of. You had no idea.
Yeah, it was just really confusing that they would tell me that that's where you cooked, because it really didn't make no sense. It made no sense that you would start a fire in that thing.
Right. I mean, where does the smoke go? Where does the stick? And I mean, of course, you said they laughed, but at the same time, it was just an indication of how far outside of the world you and your family were.
Yes, and you spoke of that time in the restaurant. One thing that was really difficult for me as a daughter, I was not allowed to eat. My father wanted me to look a certain way for his sexual desires.
Right.
And so if I had food, I couldn't even take a bite unless I had showed it to him first. And many times I would show him my bowl, and he would say, "Nope, can't have it."
That's crazy. I mean, because at that point, and in fact, in that story where the family invited you guys all over to have dinner, they had offered to buy you dinner. Your father, he ordered the biggest T-bone steak on the menu with all the trimmings and stuff like that, and you turned to him and said, I think it was, "My Lord, may I eat?" Is that am I remembering that right?
Yeah, Michael, you do well recognizing those little things. That was quite difficult, calling him Lord. And then when he ate food, even as a little girl, I would just cry because I would be starving, really hungry, and I'd watch him eat the best in the house.
Right.
And while we starved, and we weren't even allowed to eat because he used the Bible verse that told us that we were supposed to take care of, or that is how he interpreted it, that we were supposed to take care of the livestock and the animals first. And so we would work really hard, my brothers and I, and we would be starving.
Yeah. I mean, this is some crazy stuff. You guys were basically living a completely subsistence lifestyle in the Sangre de Cristos, and you were there, but you weren't getting along with your neighbors. Your father, there was you guys were poaching game. You were doing all different kinds of things that he was justifying in his twisted view of morality and religion. And that eventually forced you out of those areas, and you guys became nomads for a while in national parks and other places. Along the lines here, somewhere along the lines, your father turned to you, as you mentioned, for sexual gratification, which to me is one of the most horrific things I can possibly think of. When did that start? When did that occur initially?
Yeah, thanks for asking, Michael. It was the hardest story for me to even mention for so many years, and I've referred to the sexual part in my book. It was definitely a difficult process of trying to figure out how to put that in there without it blowing everybody away.
Right.
So we chose to put it in the book in one spot, even though it happened for 10 years constantly. But like the beginning of it, it started as a child, a baby in my father's arms in the shower with him. But over the years, it got a whole lot worse when I was 19, when he started taking liberties that went way beyond what I even understood as normal. And these were the toughest thing to write out of the wilderness.
Right.
In chapter 23 and 24, I talk about that.
Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I remember we found this cattle trough. It was like this long green water trough out in the middle of nowhere. And he had me, we built a fire underneath it, built a bath, and warmed up the water. And he always took baths, and at home we had baths like that out in the wilderness, where we hauled the water and filled it up and built fires underneath it. And I had spent most of my life bathing with him in his underwear while I was in a T-shirt and panties. And I would just, but this night was real different and really painful because he had moved closer and closer to me in ways that he hadn't done before. So, and then he started speaking in a seductive way and just made it sound like I was this special thing that God had created for him. And also he was so angry and he had been taking my brothers, which this is also a very hard thing to talk about, but he would become very angry with all of us at times. And right before this situation, he had taken my brothers who had kind of stood up against him. And since they'd done that, he told them to take their clothes off and bend over this wooden barrel that we had and just whipped them with the bullwhip. And it was so hard because then he would ask me to rub his shoulders, and it was humiliating for my father to put me in that position where he wanted me to make him feel better for hurting my brothers. And so back to the bathtub, where he moved in a way that he sexually came on me, and next thing I knew, he sent me to the back of our old truck, and that just became the hardest day of my life, where it felt like I lost everything, all under the name of, you do this and I'll save your family. You do what I say and my wrath won't be as strong. And somehow inside of me, I just died that day. I was like, if that's all I'm worth, and if I can make this beast happy, then I will do it. But it was even worse than that because he also told me that this is what I was created for. This is what God says. And
Right.
this is your job. And it was mixed. I've always said I'd rather had a gun put to my head than the Bible.
Yeah, no, it's horrifying to see things like this happen, and especially to have that put on a young woman, that now you are responsible for the safety of your family, and this is all that you're made for, or all that you're really kind of good for at that point. We're going to continue this discussion with Elishaba Doerksen here in just a moment. We're talking about her book, Out of the Wilderness, which is available now. We'll continue to talk about that here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free think radio.
What is that?
Common sense. Regularly heard on American radio. Michael Duke Show. Radio.
Okay, we're in the break right now with Elishaba Doerksen. She joins us, and thank you, by the way, Elishaba, for sending me the little audio cut and pronouncing your name. I completely butchered it on Friday when I was talking about it. So I mean, I appreciate that, because it's always hard when you're never sure. You've never heard somebody's name and spoken, and so that was very good. Thank you so much.
Well, you're doing an awesome job. Saying
Well,
Elishaba Doerksen is not easy.
Yeah, no, and I was just curious about that. Now, you started off with a totally different name, right? I mean, they were hippies, Papa and your mom were hippies, and so you started off with a real hippie name, right? Wasn't it like Butterfly something?
Yeah, when I was born, both my parents were the hippies, and my father was Firefly Sunstar, and my mother was Sunlight Sunstar. And then when I was born in one of those little bubbles, and what do they call that? Anyways, my father took a thorn from a rose bush and popped it, so I was like in this safe little bubble as long as I could be. And then he said that I was like a butterfly because I popped out of the cocoon, and so he named me Butterfly. And that was on my birth certificate, Butterfly Sunstar. It was it was crazy when I came to Alaska and I got a driver's license and found out that my real name was Butterfly Sunstar. It blew me away.
So you didn't even know about, you didn't even remember that for the longest time.
No, well, I knew I was Butterfly Sunstar when I was born, but I didn't realize that was my legal name, because my Hale was my family's name.
Right.
And Doerksen is my married name, because now I'm married to Matthew, and I have 2 wonderful children.
Yeah, no, that's some amazing stuff. Yeah, I imagine that would be a bit shocking to walk up to the DMV and they're like, Butterfly? What? Wait a second. Now when you were living in New Mexico, that's when you actually been named 3 times, right?
Yes, let's see. I was Butterfly Sunstar when I was born, and then when my father got religion, he named me Elizabeth. And then when I think I was about 16 years old, when my brother Noah was born in this big teepee lodge, my father decided that we were Noah's family. Like, we were building us an ark, and we were digging in caves and everything. So he decided to call us all after Hebrew names, and he called me Elishaba. And that was supposed to be my, special name. And I just hated Elizabeth, because when I was in trouble, he would say Elizabeth. And so when I got, after I escaped and all, and I was with my husband, he helped me, legally change my name back to Elishaba Hale. So then when I got married, I was able to
get the name that you
have
wanted.
that as my
right.
maiden name.
Well, it's good. It's good that you get to choose. You get to take the power and choose the things that you wanted, and I think that is a good thing. You know, the other thing that I noticed time and again, and I kind of want to touch on this when we get back to the radio, because we're still in the commercial break. But when we get back to the radio here in about 2 minutes, I do want to talk a bit about the fact that your father continued to twist and interpret Scripture to his own ends. Excuse me. And you mentioned, I think it's on your website, you mentioned that he talks about some of his own bizarre interpretations, including, keeping his own virgin and some of these other things. And then again, what I mentioned earlier, I think you posted it on Facebook talking about how he wanted to keep it secret. And keeping it secret was supposedly biblical at that point as well. And that seems to be a common theme in all the things that were going on in your life at that moment, that he was turning and twisting those things. And how difficult that must have been for a person who was godly, but at the same time listening to the perversion of Scripture, through the lens of an abusive father at that point.
Yeah. Okay, well, whatever you ask me, I will say.
Okay, good. All right, well, we're going to touch base on that and everything. But again, I like to highlight the fact that your life today is you're out of the wilderness for sure, married, happy, 2 kids, and this has kind of become cathartic out of it.
Okay, yeah. And there's also how I got out, whatever you want me to talk about.
No, we're going to talk about that all here. We got about 20 minutes that we're going to 15 minutes. We're going to talk about that here. So just hold the line. Okay. I'll be right back to you. Don't go anywhere. We're talking with Elishaba Doerksen, who is the author of the book Out of the Wilderness. If you've lived in Alaska, you've probably heard of the whole Papa Pilgrim thing. Well, she was at the top of that. She was at the top of that whole thing. She was at the top of that problem as the eldest daughter of 15 children born to the Hale family. And this is a fascinating read. Heartbreaking, but also fascinating. And so we'll continue with Elishaba Doerksen right now. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Here we go. All right, we're continuing now with Elishaba Doerksen, the author of the book Out of the Wilderness, about her experience as being the eldest daughter of Papa Pilgrim and what that means. We were just talking about it during the break. She's out of the wilderness. She escaped. We're going to talk about the escape here in a second. But one of the things, again, one of the constant themes I kept reading through here is how someone took the word, the Scripture, and twisted it to their own ends. And how difficult that must have been to understand that. And now looking back at that, he basically was twisting everything to fit whatever his narrative or whatever he wanted, right?
Yes. It was really interesting. The other morning, I looked this up. And to be honest, it was really scary to open the Bible and read these Bible verses, since I had heard it from my father so many times, and it was used to make me do what he wanted. As he would tell my mom and me, keep this as our secret between us, between the 3 of us. And he would just use the Bible to shame me from telling anyone about what he was doing. And when he said, it is a shame to speak of things done in secret, I mean, it's definitely really a spiritual abuse. I would have to say it was one of the hardest things that I went through.
Right.
It may sound strange, but when your brain is psychologically brainwashed,
right,
and it's used for someone's own agenda, then it's not for me, it was for his own accomplishment. And that's where using just text out of the Bible was spiritual abuse.
Now, before we went to break, you were talking about how your father was emotionally and blackmailing you to basically say, if you do what I want you to do, then you'll be protecting your brothers and sisters. But at some point, you'd made the decision that you had to get away. And so let's talk about the escape. How did you, what was the start of that, and how did you eventually pull it off?
Well, like I said, his sexual abuse of me lasted 10 years. And during that time, we moved to Alaska, and he wanted to isolate us even more. So he took us way out into the Wrangell St. Elias Mountains of Alaska, which we got this property. It was 400 acres just out in the middle of nowhere up past McCarthy. And Papa Pilgrim, and I tell these stories in my book, Out of the Wilderness. He called it Hillbilly Heaven, which is ironic, for it was really felt like hell on earth.
Right.
And it was 14 miles up this narrow valley, which was steep mountains on either side of us, up past the little town of McCarthy. And in the town, there was a couple dozen people year-round that lived there, which our family was a good portion of them once we moved in. So being out there in the middle of nowhere, and my father would try to tell me that I wasn't actually allowed to leave his side. And I just remember even my mom coming to me and telling me that, like, how thankful she was, because, like, I had watched my father beat my mom a lot when I was younger, and just really cried and screamed, and just, it was so hard. And then she recognized me, and that felt good because she recognized that I was taking all the beatings. But in my mind, that was like, I'm saving her, I'm saving my siblings, and then my brothers, Joseph, Joshua, David, Moses, and eventually Israel, had all decided they were going to leave, and they escaped and went down to McCarthy and went to work in Glen Ellen. But before they left, they begged me. They said, "You got to get out of here. Like, there's no way."
Right.
But I was so mentally stuck because I was sure I had to be there to save my family. That was just in my mind, and I couldn't even convince myself that that should change. And then it just, like, suddenly it came to me that I had to get away, and that there was no way to save my family. And between me and God, I finally realized that I was taking control, and I could just give it over to him. Even though it was really confusing, I knew that I had to get away, and if I didn't, I was going to die.
Right.
So finally, it was in April. It was this breakup season in Alaska, but if I didn't make a run for it, it was going to be the end. I knew it. So I waited until the perfect opportunity when my papa had to go into McCarthy for some fuel. He would just go right down and get some gasoline and come right back up. So there was only one snow machine path that went down the valley, and I knew there was a place halfway down that I could hide, and in the woods where he could just pass by me, so Papa wouldn't see me. And then after he left, I prepared my escape. I told my mom that I'm leaving, and one of my sisters said she was coming with me. This is my sister, Jerusalem, and she was 16 at the time. I'm 13 years older than her. And so I'm thinking, okay, now I've got to take care of her. My plan was to just go to the wilderness and hide.
Right.
But we jumped on the snow machine after we loaded it up and realized that it had been sabotaged, and my father had left them where we couldn't get away. And after we finally got it going, it was quite a narrow escape. It was like a dream that you're having, and you just can't run or you can't fly. You just can't get away. And there was one point where I remember standing on the trail, and the snow machine died, and it was falling apart. And I just looked up into the mountains, and I was like, I'm going to die. There's no way out. I can't climb out. If he finds me now, it's the end. And unfortunately, we finally got another snow machine going, and we kept going, and we finally made it to this place, covered ourselves up with white sheets, and he came by, I think, within 10 to 15 minutes. I knew he had a gun, and I feared that he would kill us, because as soon as he found out we had gone, that it would be the end.
Right.
Yeah. So we finally made it to McCarthy, and we found a place under a tree where we stayed for 5 days, actually. And this is, like I said, it was actually a really cold year, so it was around 20 below zero. And I just remember laying there shaking so hard. Like,
Jeez.
I was so cold, and I was so confused. I was even doubting whether I'd done the right thing, to be honest.
Well,
I mean, he told me that I would kill him if I left.
Yeah. This is, this whole story is fascinating and hair-raising and chilling, but also encouraging because you had the faith and the courage to leave and make those decisions. We're running out of time here, but I do want to talk briefly, just about the idea of the genesis of this book. Give me a quick 1-minute synopsis here. What caused you to say, I think I need to write a book about this? Was it cathartic? What were you trying to do here?
Well, I started 11 years ago. I wanted to tell my story. I wanted others to find out that there was hope, that you can find courage, you can get out, and you don't have to be stuck there. And over the years, I was just so angry, though. I wanted to see my father pay. I wanted others to pay for what I had gone through as the layers opened up. And it was shocking to find out that I had lost 29 years of my life.
Right.
And then when I found forgiveness in the year of 2015, I went out to my father's grave and he went to jail. He died 2 years later. And it was so difficult, and even wrote a whole book until 2 years ago. I wrote Out of the Wilderness, and going to my father's grave and saying, "Papa, I forgive you," was so freeing for me. So, you can find my book on outofthewildernessbook.com, and you can also find it in some of the bookstores in Alaska, like Tidal Wave in Anchorage and Fireside in Palmer. And I think my greatest desire is for people who have been stuck in abuse, or spiritual abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse,
to find a way.
Just about any kind of abuse.
Right.
There is a way out. And really, for me, it was figuring out what forgiveness was and uncovering the layers.
Elishaba,
forgiveness, yeah.
Yeah, Elishaba Doerksen, thank you so much. Hold the line for a second. We're out of time, folks. Hour 2, dead ahead. Elishaba, I'm sorry we had a hard break there at the top of the hour. But, awesome. I mean, this book, I'm definitely starting it again. My wife has already said she wants to read it to hear, after I talked to her a little bit about some of the stories and some of the things that I was gasping at as I read the book. It's horrific to see some of the way that, that one human can treat another human being a certain way, but it's also encouraging to see how you came out of it and were able to have that strength. And, it's hard. I mean, you mentioned even at 19 years old, you still had the heart and mind of a girl. I mean, because you basically had been, your growth in those areas had been retarded by your father's, overarching thing. Yeah. And the fact that you finally came to it, at 29 years old to realize that, you're worth more than this and you need to get out of it. It was, it's a heart-wrenching story, but at the same time, it's encouraging. And like you said, to find that forgiveness. I haven't gotten to that part of the book yet, so now I'm going to have to go back and read that. But it is, it's truly horrifying, but at the same time, encouraging to find out that, God can still work through that stuff and get you out of those areas, and that's a heart-wrenching thing, but at the same time, it's encouraging.
Thank you, Michael. You're very intuitive.
Well, I appreciate you coming in, and I know you were.
Happy birthday to your daughter.
Oh, it was not my daughter. It's one of our listeners, Ann. It's her birthday today, so. But I know you were a little nervous about this, but there's never anything to be nervous about. We're just having a good conversation. So I appreciate you coming in. Thank you so much for being part of it today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Well, and can you give people the link to my book?
Yeah, sure. Sure. Absolutely. If you want to drop the link in the chat room, I'm here on your website right now, elishaba.com. and order my book. I click the link there, and
outofthewildernessbook.com.
Yep, and I'll put the links right up here in the chat room. People can take a look at it, and they can be ready to go. All right. Well,
awesome.
Thank you so much for coming on board, and I appreciate it. Thank you for sharing your story with us. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michael.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Bye.
All right. Coming up, we're going to be talking with Chris By here in just a few moments. Congressional candidate. I got to say, this is my comment this morning. I saw Herman said something about Herman, who is constantly quoting the word in the chat room, who's constantly, talking about God's will and everything else, said he had to turn off the sound until the next guest. It's just too salacious, like watching Jerry Springer. I find that, well, Herman, I find that a little offensive that you don't want to hear the story about a woman who overcame this kind of stuff, with the help of her faith, and the fact that her father was twisting the word in such a way that he was causing and helping and continuing that kind of abuse against her and her siblings. I mean, I think that's very selfish of you, Herman, quite honestly. Anyway, Elishaba Doerksen, good stuff. And again, you can get a copy of her book on the links that I just dropped there in the chat room, and I think Hannah just dropped a link as well. Outofthewildernessbook.com. Yep, you can get them. But either one of those links will take you where you need to go. But definitely educational, to say the least. I know more now about the whole Papa Pilgrim thing than I ever wanted to, but it's important to learn. All right. Sorry, but there are important things that are going on. Yes, there are important things that are going on, like the salvation of a young woman who came out of bondage from her parents like that. I think that's just as important as anything else that's been brought up here this morning. So there you go. There you go. All right. We go back here through the comment. Going back here through good morning. So exciting to hear Elishaba. Brian says, I'm actually tearing up. I mean, I was when she was talking about her brothers being beaten and then her father making that move on her right after he beat her and whipped her brothers with a bullwhip. I'm sorry. That's just, that's just some crazy stuff. Man has been perverting religion from the beginning of time. That's true. It's power, and it was a way to have power over other people. Go ahead and criticize. I never criticized your faith, Herman. I criticized your judgment about what was important. There's a difference there. Elishaba's story is different. It's a story that others may have encountered, but hers is a happy ending. Redemption is possible. Forgiveness is possible. I believe you'll be blessed by this brave and strong woman of God. Yes. No, I agree. All right. I think we've got Chris By on the line right now. Let's double check to make sure that he's up and running. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Michael. How are you this fine day?
I am doing just fine. I'm ready to go. You are ready to talk with us this morning?
Absolutely. That's going to be a tough act to follow, though.
Yeah, it's a tough one, but we're going to jump into it. If you've got a radio on in the background, I need you to step away from it or turn it off because I'm getting a little bit of feedback on the back there. So if you've got that, let's go on. I'll put you back. I'll put you back on hold, and we'll come back to you here in just a hard second. All right. Thank you, Michael, for having a brave lady on for a very interesting interview. This is a very rough story, says Greg. It was hard to hear and know what happens. Yeah, it is hard to hear and know what happens, but we can't turn a blind eye just because it's hard. I agree, Greg. I mean, it's a hard story. Hard to hear, but we can't turn away from it just because it's hard to hear. Or we find it too salacious, I guess is my point. You don't turn away because it's too salacious. All right. We're going to jump into this now. We got more coming up. Hour 2 is dead ahead. Chris By is our guest, The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast. The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
All right, welcome back to the program. It is the Michael Dukes Show, broadcasting live across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or translator, and around the world at michaeldukeshow.com. Hour 2 of the program, and whew, man, it's a hard act to follow. We just finished up with Elishaba Doerksen and her new book, Out of the Wilderness, which you can find at outofthewildernessbooks.com. She's got a whole it's an amazing story of redemption and forgiveness and everything else. And I recommend, if you missed it, you go back and listen to it on the podcast, available later on this morning or on the replay on Facebook. It's great stuff. But now we're going to switch back into our political mode. Second hat is now on, and we're going to talk about what's going on out there in the world. Joining us this morning to discuss the politics of the world is Chris By. Chris is a Alaska fishing guide, combat vet, and he said he's dreadfully tired of holding his nose and choosing the lesser of two evils at the ballot box. So he stepped up into it, and he is now running for Congress against Don Young. Chris By joins us this morning to discuss his candidacy and his positions and everything else. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
I am. First, I got to tell you, I'm doing well. But I'm a little nervous. I freely admit it. I can't believe I'm actually on this side of the speakers.
Yeah.
After having you in my car for the last decade, heading into Fort Wainwright to execute PT in the morning,
right.
I'm actually talking to you, and other people are going to Fort Wainwright to execute PT, listening to you and I discuss this very important stuff.
Well, I appreciate that. It's been good, and I'm glad to have you on the program, and I appreciate your listenership. And it's always heartening to me to see somebody step up and make a decision. I mean, if you've been listening for a decade, you know that at one point I did the same thing and stepped up and the local level and joined the assembly just because I thought I needed to try and make a difference. I wouldn't change that for the world, even though it was definitely an eye-opening experience, and I don't know how much good I did, but it's always heartening to see somebody else step up and take the bull by the horns and say, if not me, then who? And if not now, then when?
Exactly.
Exactly. So let's talk a little bit. Give us a little bit of your background. I just kind of hit on it, but tell us a little bit about Chris By that we probably don't know.
Sure. Again, for your audience, I am Chris By. That's spelled B-Y-E. I am the Libertarian candidate. I will freely admit, just like all my Libertarian friends that are listening, I am a 76% Libertarian, and I have a very, very mean streak of independence. And I carry that with me everywhere I go. I am a husband to the most beautiful woman in Alaska. I have 4 amazingly growing young adults because we don't raise kids in the By household.
Right.
And as you mentioned, I served the United States Army for just over 20 years. And that service continues even after my service to the nation. We do all kinds of things here. Just about every day or every other day you can find the By household out doing some kind of weird volunteer stuff, from driving the Alcan, bringing up stuff from the south, or feeding the homeless here in Fairbanks. And, that little segment about stepping up is That's really true. And
well,
I think it's important that every Alaskan do that. We don't need to rely on the charity of the benevolent government to do simple things.
Right. We can do a lot of things for ourselves. Absolutely.
We can.
Well,
we
Chris,
sure can.
Let's talk about the aha moment. I mean, I like to always say whenever I've got a new politician on or a new potential candidate on, I always like to say, when exactly did you lose your mind? I mean, was there one point? Was there an aha moment? Was there a final straw on the camel's back? What made Chris By say, "That's it. I'm done with it. I'm throwing my hat in the ring"? What was the aha moment for you?
It was a process, Michael. I freely admit that. It's going to take me about 2 minutes to explain it. The first aha moment was back in 2005. I was deployed to Rawa, Iraq. For all the vets that are listening, because I know there's a handful of them out there, I really appreciate your service. I'm honored to serve you.
What was the moment there, Chris?
It was a tough moment, So one morning I'm doing a reenlistment oath, and for those who don't know, there's a line in that reenlistment oath, and it goes like this: to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I had completed that. Reenlistment, and we went out on a patrol. And I remember looking at the faces of all the Iraqis as we're rolling through Rawa. And I just remember thinking, these people, Michael, are literally no danger to America or the Constitution of the United States. Yeah. And I was shocked that a Republican president would send us all the way overseas to Iraq for literally no good reason.
Right.
It was frustrating. And I couldn't understand why Congress would pass, the authorization to enable that. I mean, it's frustrating. That's the word I would use, right? Frustrating. So, and I didn't get any answers to this until I read an article in Politico. I encourage everybody to go look at it. It's dated September 2021. It's titled something like, "What We Got Wrong Post 9/11. Are you kidding me? What you got wrong is you sent us to war. You cost the lives of over 5,700 service members, countless lives of Iraqis, countless Afghans, and at a cost of $8 trillion. And it was our career politicians that did that.
Right.
It's super frustrating. So fast forward, I get back from Afghanistan in 2012, and a mentor gave me a book. I encourage everybody to get this book, and you've probably read it. It's called Liberty Defined by Ron Paul. If your audience doesn't have this book, they ought to get it. Like, that changed everything. And then, the last thing that really broke it was 2016, 2018. The Republicans had both the House, they had the Senate, and they had the White House.
Right.
And you would have thought we got some freedom out of that.
Right.
Instead, we got like a paltry tax cut that this still frustrates me to this day. In fact, it so frustrated me that I'm running for Congress. And I freely admit, the Republican Party left me.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think
left me.
I think it left a lot of people. I mean, I remember having that same kind of aha moment at the national level when I watched the contract on America. I mean, the contract for America get executed, right? I mean, here they made all these promises. They did all these things. They swept the House. They swept the Senate. And then they immediately stumbled on their own shoelaces and did absolutely nothing. And that's when I realized, you're never going to be able to count on these national parties to do anything. It's just, It's so frustrating to watch.
You know what's really interesting about that is there was a gentleman, he led the Inquisition of Bill Clinton. What's really unique about Mr. Hyde is that he himself had some closet mistresses.
All right.
And yet, he stood up to do the Inquisition of Bill Clinton. And we all remember him for the Hyde Amendment, right?
Right.
I'm sure your listeners are well aware of that. But you know what a lot of people don't remember is in 96 he got up, and I'm paraphrasing, he got up in Congress on the floor and said, the American people require career politicians to steer the boat in times of trouble. And I would offer the following evidence. 20 years of war, nearly $31 trillion of debt, the Patriot Act, all these mandates that were starting to fall away because they realized they were stupid. That's what our career politicians gave us.
Right.
That's why I'm running. I'm just a regular dude who just likes fishing, but I can't look at my kids and the kids in my neighborhood and not do something about it. I cannot stand on the sideline anymore. And so there you go. That's why I'm running.
Chris By, candidate for U.S. Congress. It's Time Alaska is his website, and I see you've got some issues up here as well. What are some of the things that are going to separate you from Congressman for all Alaska, Don Young? What is going to separate you? I mean, I see you've got natural resources, the debt, auditing the Fed, the mandates, the military, of course, the Second Amendment. Let's hit on all those. Let's start with the natural resources.
That's fantastic. So, Michael, you know what I would say is that this gentleman has been there since Richard Nixon declared Richard Nixon wasn't a crook. And yet we're still waiting on land to come back to Alaskans, right? I mean, there's an initiative within the BLM, that's Bureau of Land Management for those who aren't Alaskans, that has retained 36 million acres that's supposed to be Alaska land. There's all kinds of song and dance that goes with it.
Right.
And it still hasn't been handed over. And you would think that a gentleman who's got the title the dean would have been able to solve this, 2 decades ago. And yet here we are, still waiting on it. That right there is a good example of how professional politicians stifle normal Alaskans, right? Because that land just isn't land. That land, natural resource development isn't just a slogan. It's the stimulus for opportunity.
Right.
Those are jobs for future botanists and biologists.
That's where real wealth comes from, right? I mean, from the land.
Exactly. And I'm ready to roll my sleeves up and actually get that land transferred. And along with that comes the access and the ability to manage it ourselves. I firmly believe that local accountability and local control with local authority provides the best accountability. I firmly believe that. And the further removed we make these decisions, the worse that solution really is. And this natural resource management is a good example of that. I mean, frankly, nobody cares more for Alaska than Alaskans.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you're from, San Francisco or if you're from downtown Brooklyn. Nobody cares more for Alaskan than Alaskans. But the one thing I don't have on my website that I truly think we should probably brush on is this guy, President Zelensky. I mean, if you're looking for a leader, like that guy's got some brass. I mean, he's like, that guy has got some brass.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you saw the latest comments, but I guess Blinken and President Biden have offered him a ride to safety. And I guess the response was, I don't need a ride, I need ammo.
Yeah, no, I saw that on Saturday. He said, yeah, send more anti-tank missiles. I don't need a ride, send more anti-tank missiles.
And that's probably a pretty good segue for two different libertarian, lines of thought here, right? Obviously, as a former soldier, I am extremely reluctant to send any additional soldiers to any battlefield that doesn't include the boundaries of the United States.
Absolutely.
I am extremely reluctant to do that. That doesn't mean that we don't help people, achieve freedom and liberty. But I'm pretty reluctant to spend the most precious capital we have. I have seen it spent.
Right.
I have felt it go through my fingers. And I'm a little against that. That doesn't mean we can't support the guy. It just means we have to come up with creative ways to do that. And the first one that comes to my mind is the embargoes and the sanctions that we placed onto Russia, except for one critical piece, and that would be energy.
Right. The 700 million barrels that they're talking. Right. Yeah. Right. All right. I mean.
Right. I mean, I would surmise that we potentially had an easy response to that 32 months ago. We probably, as an exporter, could have pushed more natural resources, more energy to Europe if we didn't have such a failing energy policy within the current administration.
Right. I mean, the same administration that's been cutting off American oil independence at the knees since they got started.
Right. That's absolutely correct. And it's not that every administration, doesn't have its low points. I mean, every administration does, right? I mean, with the overreach of the federal government, they're bound to have some holes.
Yeah.
So we simply can't rely on a benevolent, bureaucratic machine to always come to our rescue.
Absolutely. Well, and I think we've become inured to that. We've kind of become, every time we have a problem, we start looking to the federal government instead of looking at ourselves in the mirror and saying, you are the solution, quit looking to the government kind of thing. Chris Bai is our guest, candidate for U.S. Senate. Chris, hold the line. You could find him at itstimealaska.com. We're going to continue with Chris here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. We'll get his take on some other hot button issues. I'm liking what I'm hearing so far, though. We're going to continue with him here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
All right, we're continuing now with Chris Bai, candidate for Congress here. It's kind of it's almost like libertarian is a dirty word these days, Chris. I mean, you've probably felt that more than anybody. We saw it during the last few elections, and how could you vote for this? How could you vote for that? Because a vote for this libertarian, whether it was Jeff Johnson or somebody else, that's a vote for fill in the blank for whoever they didn't want to win. So how do you answer that when you're talking to people these days about you're not a member of one of the major parties, then you're just a spoiler, or you're just, it doesn't matter. What do you say to them?
Michael, you must be reading over my shoulder. I actually have my little note card here to discuss that very topic. I wish it was on the open air, but
we can take if it's near and dear to your heart, we could take it back and come back to it as well. I will say that I've been heartened by seeing the fighting in the Ukraine and what the Ukrainians have done, whether it was the 17 on not Fire Island, the island there where they basically told the Russians to go F themselves,
right.
or the Ukrainian Marine who blew himself and the bridge up to prevent the Russians from crossing it, to whoever. I mean, there are some real lessons to learn as we watch this fight going on with Russia right now.
It's truly amazing, right? I mean, that's a population of 20 plus million. And we're watching this unfold. What's kind of unique about that is that we always think of heroics as being a American thing. We don't take the time to look at the diversity across the globe and how we can benefit from that, right? And I'm not talking forced diversity. I'm talking real, live, volunteer diversity. And that example of that young Ukrainian is a prime example of what the world should be about. That guy sacrificed his life for his friends.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's heartwarming and heart-wrenching at the same time. You mentioned the $30 trillion in debt and the $8 trillion worth of blood and treasure that we've expended in these wars since 9/11. And, of course, that leads me to a lot of other questions, including our national debt. The fact that we're at, $30 trillion now, essentially, of national debt. And,
I think I'm sorry, I don't mean to speak over you. I think you can go to my website, and you're going to see this is so important that I put the debt clock up there on the banner.
Yeah.
But that's how important this is.
Yeah. No, we've tripped over at $30.1 trillion in national debt right now. $90,000 per citizen, $240,000 per taxpayer right now.
You know what that really, really is? That right there is a lack of moral standing within our career politicians. That's what that is, because that $30 trillion is so that we can live better today by enslaving future generations. enslaving them.
Yeah.
And I know that's a hard word for people to hear, but that's basically what we're doing. And there's no stop. I would contend, though, and this might hurt some of your listeners, but I would contend that we didn't get there by one party.
No.
I mean, both parties are responsible for that debt. When the gentleman that I'm running against joined, the debt was like in the thousands, hundreds of thousands.
Right.
And he's been there, and he wants to go back. And I just have to say, if we send these kind of individuals back, these same type of individuals, we're going to get the same outcome every time, and we're all going to be disappointed in it.
Right.
And I'll tell you why. It's real simple. When they go there, they don't answer to the constituency. They answer to the party elite and the party leadership. And those individuals answer to special interests.
Yeah.
And that's why we're not going to get any significant change. That's why your listeners and others have to vote for libertarians.
Yeah.
Because we're not beholden to any, literally not beholden to any political elites, because we don't have any political elites.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's amazing to watch. I watched Thomas Massey on that YouTube or the Facebook series called The Swamp, and he talked about when he went there, and it was, I mean, everything was controlled by the party. I mean, you had to raise money for the party. You had to do this. You had to do that. You were only rewarded with position if you did all those things. I mean, it's astonishing to watch, but we're going to pick this back up. Hold the line here, Chris. Chris By is our guest. We're going to jump back into it here, take some more questions from Chris. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like this video, share this video, hit subscribe, ring the bell. Here we go. Welcome back. We're continuing now. Chris By is our guest. He is the Libertarian candidate for U.S. Congress. Chris, is that the big L or the little L? I got to ask right off the bat there. Is that the big L or the little L?
It's not just big L. It's all caps Libertarian.
It's all caps Libertarian.
You got it.
Yeah, no, I love that. It's good stuff. But, as this raises a question that I started to raise in the chat room. You said you wanted to talk about it on the air. And that is this question, because I heard it. I heard it during the election in 2016. I heard it during the election in 2020 when there were Libertarian candidates up there. People said, oh, don't vote for the Libertarian, because if you vote for the Libertarian, then that's just a vote for blank, whoever their opponent was. And I get tired of that, because, again, you mentioned the lesser of two evils. You sent an email to me, and you were talking about tired of voting for the lesser of two evils. I mean, I got to break it to those folks out there. The lesser of two evils is still evil.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the problem. So what do you say to people when they say, oh, we couldn't vote for the Libertarian candidate because blank? What are your thoughts on that?
So there's 3 points to be made on that. The first one that I personally didn't vote for, but I'm going to do everything to capitalize on, and that's ranked choice voting. I didn't vote for it because it seemed like lots of dark money. But I have to admit, that is my only option, because I don't have enough dark money to compete with the Republicans or the Democrats. I think in my bank account for running, I've got 600 nickels that we could rub together. So
right.
I don't have the option to do some of these amazing things like fly all over Alaska and pontificate. So that's the first one. The second one I would say is, if you would, think of a bell curve, right? And, you got the hilltop, and then you got the two sloping sides. It's how we all got B's when we were in grade school.
Right.
So on the far sides of that are your political activists, right? And it doesn't really matter what ilk, what political denomination you subscribe to. But every time one side makes a decision, that bell curve spreads out. And what's between those two political denominations is all the non-voters. And they're tired of this mess. So I'll give you a good example. In October of last year, Fairbanks North Shore Borough held an election, and just under 19% of eligible voters voted. That meant that the political direction of Fairbanks North Star Borough was literally decided by 1.2 for every 10 people. That means the other, 90% basically have to song and dance to that direction.
Right.
And I think Americans are starting to see that pendulum swing both back and forth, right? And every time it goes back up to one direction of that political denomination, they add a little more to it. They're like, "Oh yeah, I'll see you in +1," and then it swings back to the other side. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm going to ante up, and I'm going to put the Millennium Falcon in there, and I'm going to add one more." And it just keeps swinging back and forth. And you know what's left behind when they do that? Us. We're left behind.
Right.
And it's super frustrating. And there's a lot of concern about how we're going to stop this. And quite frankly, you know what it's going to take, Michael? It's going to take courageous voters to step off their traditional pathway and vote for someone like me. Not in the 2 position, not in the 3 position, but in the 1st position. That's what it's going to take. Otherwise, we're always going to be disappointed in the outcomes because I don't have to song and dance for any political elites or leadership.
Well, and
you know who my special interest is, Michael? Alaskans. That's who my special interest is. Everybody else can pound sand, but Alaskans first. That's how I feel about it.
Well, and as you mentioned it earlier, too, this is a unique chance and a unique opportunity to not have to pick only one. I mean, if you make it through the jungle primary, then guess what? It could be Chris By first, and then whoever you think has got the next greatest chance and matches your agenda second. I mean, that's an amazing thing. I mean, that is the one silver lining of this whole deal, is that some of the candidates who may have not have had a chance in past elections may get a chance this go-round.
Yeah, I what's really troubling is that, I know a lot of Alaskans, right? I fish and I guide and I go to the gun shows and I do all that cool Alaska stuff. What's really unique about that argument that you put forth earlier is that these people aren't voting courageously. They're voting out of fear. Right? They're so worried that the other team might win that they're willing to sacrifice their conscience in order to ensure that other team doesn't win.
Yeah.
And I put my name humbly forward that you don't have to do that anymore. You got someone who, frankly, when we have family reunions, Michael, there are no politicians and there are no DC insiders. My family reunions consist of farmers and military service members.
Right.
I am just a regular guy who's just fed up with the status quo.
Let's talk for a minute here about some of the other issues that you would take a different tack with than our current congressman. I mean, whether it's mandates or the military. I know that you are a big audit the Fed guy. Of course, that goes back to your discussion about Ron Paul, et cetera.
Right.
Let's pick it up there.
Sure. Right now, there are so many mandates coming out. And they cover all kinds of things. Lately, obviously in the news are the COVID mandates, but there are mandates for all kinds of things. And a majority of those mandates never originate where they're supposed to, because those mandates become punitive. They become laws. All laws are supposed to start in Congress, but they allow them to initiate and be executed without a vote in a majority of the executive branch departments, agencies, all that other stuff and fluff that we've made up to expand our bureaucracy. And you know what that really does is that provides cover for career politicians.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, because you can't touch those faceless bureaucrats. I mean, these bureaucrats, let me give you an example of one. These bureaucrats, they reside in suite inside the Beltway offices. They inhabit places like, I don't know, the Postal Service. If there's one organization in the Postal Service, the IG organization, that ought to know the difference between sending mail and becoming America's newest spy agency, you would think it would be the Postal Service, right? But yet some bureaucrat thought that was okay, and that's a travesty. That truly is. We can do better than that, and so I'd like to audit those, and it's going to be tough and difficult, right? Because these bureaucrats have been protected by our career politicians for, 70, 80 years now?
Yeah.
I mean, at least since the New Green Deal, since the New Deal. So, yeah, I want to do that. I think that's extremely important because that puts the onus back on the elected officials where it should be.
Yeah, I mean, and as you said, I mean, look, we've been trying to get an audit out of the DOD for, 3 or 4 years now, and the audit's not complete. I mean, how can we continue to send money to organizations that can't even account for the dollars that they're getting right now?
Just imagine the blood capital that we're entrusting to these individuals. I mean, if they can't handle, where truck A is or where dollar B went, why in the world would we trust them with any more soldiers?
Right.
I mean, it's a travesty. It's a travesty. And that's the other beautiful thing, right? Because I'm a libertarian, I don't have to answer to special interests. I answer to only one special interest, right? The constituents of Alaska. I don't have to song and dance to the military-industrial complex for yet more money. And you better believe they're spending money for Ukraine right now. You just know they are.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Let's talk quickly here about, of course, one of my favorite ones, which is the Second Amendment, and the fact that we have, it seems like, more rules and regulations these days. It seems like shall not be infringed. It was apparently very vague to some of these bureaucrats and politicians, because here we sit today. Where do you stand on the Second Amendment, and should we be reversing things? What should we be doing?
This is a pretty easy question for just about every Alaskans. That includes the libertarians. Gun control includes a firm grip, a good sight picture, and a very smooth trigger squeeze. That's what gun control is, right? I don't know what you got on your hip right now in your office. I'm actually in my man jammies wandering around. My gun safe is down there where I store all my firearms. I really, really encourage people, and you probably saw it on my website, I encourage people to get training on their firearms. And it's not simply because of a safety issue or an insurance issue, but it's so that they understand and they love and they care for those firearms like children, right? Because they are dangerous things if they're used inappropriately, and I would rather see more Alaskans than read about one in the newspaper for some kind of accident. That being said, I do see that overreach, and it's a bit frustrating. And there's no real easy way to slow it down. When we start mixing morality with governance, you get this, like I said earlier, this benevolent bureaucrat machine, and they think they can bubble wrap us and protect us from all the decisions we're going to make. And that's just not possible. I mean, it's just not feasible.
Well, and it's the problem when the bureaucrats start choosing winners and losers based on their own presuppositions and their own philosophies, which may not link with the philosophies of the citizens themselves. That's part of the problem. You can't have government picking winners and losers.
Exactly, and you see that all across Alaska and all across America. And I think this is so frustrating. I think what we see is the career politicians. They get there and they lose their focus, and it's probably not simply because they're for nefarious reasons. I don't believe that, not for a second. But they lose their focus because of that overreach of government. There's so many things they have to worry about that they don't have a chance to prioritize their operations.
Yeah,
a good one of these knee-jerk reactions and picking winners and losers is the Patriot Act. The one thing you can say about our senior, longest-serving Republican in Congress is that he voted no on the Patriot Act. And I applaud him for that. I absolutely applaud him for that. I mean, that Patriot Act is just a unholy debacle of Stalinistic opportunities for a benevolent bureaucrat.
Right.
And, and we see it executed all the time. And what's really unique about that, though, Michael, is if there was one guy, one infamous, popular, whether you like him or not, one guy who said, wow, I've been bent over because of the Patriot Act. Maybe I should do something about it. That one guy, with all the dossiers and the FISA stuff, that one guy reauthorized the Patriot Act.
Right.
I mean, so think what's in that Patriot Act. If the one dude who really suffered from that, for a multiple of reasons, but if that one dude re-signed it as the president, I mean, that's terrifying to me.
Yeah, no.
We don't stand a chance.
Yeah, it shows the power of the bureaucracy for sure. Chris, we're down to the last couple minutes here. I want to give you a chance to give us your elevator pitch as to why Chris Bai is the best choice for Congress. And so I'll give you the floor here for a couple minutes and give you a chance to hit us with your last minute elevator speech here.
Michael, I really want to say thanks for having me on. It is pretty cool to be on this side of the speaker. I would encourage all the listeners that and their friends to consider me, consider Chris Bai as a candidate, not out of charity, but out of a desire for a better outcome. Again, if you're cool with song and dance being selected by the party elite and the special interests, then please go ahead and vote for a typical party guy. But if you want something actually accomplished, at least a voice from the wilderness. I mean, we live on the outer rim, for goodness sake. I'm pretty sure I saw the Mandalorian fly by. I mean, if we really want to make change, it's going to have to be a voice from the wilderness. And I am the likely choice for that. I would say that right now 152 libertarians were just elected to a myriad of positions across America this past voting cycle. 152. It's the largest we've ever had.
Right.
And the reason is because that middle of the bell curve is tired of hearing from the party elites.
Yep.
And I encourage folks to take a look at my website. Go and look at it. And you know what? If you find something on there that you don't like, I'm not a politician. Send me a note and tell me how to fix it. I'm more than willing to listen to it. At the end of the day, you know who Chris Bai answers to if once elected? All constituents. All of them. The left, the right, the center, all of them. So as a representative, I'm not beholden to just a party platform. I am representative to all the constituents. That includes ones that you and I might not agree with. That includes ones that we might agree 100% with.
Right.
But that's the beauty of being an elected official.
His website is itstimealaska.com. Chris Bai, Libertarian candidate for the Congress. Chris, this is a fun discussion and an eye-opening discussion, and we will have you back on the program before we get to election time for sure. I appreciate you coming on board and joining us today. Thank you for being part of it.
Yeah, Michael, thanks. I truly wish you a fantastic day, and I'll see you on the high ground.
All right, thank you, my friend. Appreciate it. Thank you for coming on board. Hold the line for just a second. Folks, we got more coming up. One more segment. Phone lines will be open. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio.
Your mental suppository. The Michael Duke Show.
All right, we're in the break. Chris Bai, I wanted to give him one final bite at the apple in case there was something we didn't hit on that he wanted to hit on or whatever else. It's my choice. So, Chris, your final thoughts here as we head out the door.
You know, it's good to be king, right?
That's right. It's good to be in charge. That's all I can say.
You know, one of my favorite movies, and I imagine many of your audience's favorite movies, is The Princess Bride, right? And there's this line that keeps coming up, and he's like, inconceivable, and Montoya always, says, I do not think that word means what you think it means.
Right,
and,
exactly.
And the word of the day that we would replace inconceivable with would be transparency. Right. I don't think that word means what they think it means.
Right, exactly.
So I give you a pretty good example of this, and I would encourage your listeners to get a pen and paper out. I have written everybody you can imagine, from Scott Kawasaki all the way to Miss Zink herself, and the governor, and everybody in between, and I've asked them a very simple question, a very simple statement, not even a statement, just a data point. And the hospitals are collecting it, and that is the number of vaccinated Alaskans and they're in the COVID dashboard. Right. I would like to see the COVID dashboard represent everybody who goes to the hospital for COVID. That includes the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. And it's not a question of pro-vax versus non-vax. It's a question of efficiency. Is the vaccine really helping?
Right. So you're looking for the breakthrough numbers is what you're saying, the breakthrough.
Exactly.
People with the vaccine who end up coming down with COVID in the end.
Right. And so with pen and paper, pull over. Please don't get in a wreck because I need your vote. I would encourage you to look up Foundational Health Partners, because that organization has figured something out that our illustrious Ms. Zink and the Health and Human Services and our governor haven't been able to do. They actually have the breakdown from hospitals on the number of people who are sick and the number of people who are breakthroughs. And they go all the way through those on ventilators to those who unfortunately pass away. Again, it's Foundational Health Partners, and it's a fascinating insight to the word transparency, or the lack of.
I could not agree more with you. I think that's the interesting and that's the important number to be paying attention to. I want to remind everybody that with the Jungle Primary, Chris needs your vote in the Jungle Primary to make it to the Final Four and at the ranked choice voting slot. So I look forward to seeing what happens, Chris. I mean, you got my vote as far as that goes in the primary. We'll see how it goes. I'd love to see more libertarian thought in the Congress right now.
Right. And I appreciate that, Michael. It is an honor. My voice probably came across as being a little nervous. It is an honor to be on this side of the speakers talking to you and your audience. It's whether it's Hillbilly listening or any of the other folks that are listening, I truly appreciate this opportunity.
Well, I appreciate you coming on board, my friend. It's always good to talk with you. Thank you for coming on board. And like I said, we will have you back on again before we get into the primary season. It'd be good to have you down in Washington representing all of Alaskans for real. So
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. You guys have a fantastic day.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for coming in and joining us. I appreciate that. All right. That is Chris By, candidate for Congress, Libertarian candidate for Congress. And I am excited to see where that goes. Excited to see where that goes. What a day, man! Elishaba Doerksen and Chris By. It's good. It's good. Sorry, I just reading a comment here. Laura says I had COVID and I'm not on there, meaning the data board, because I was too sick to drive to get tested. CDC said, "Well, if you can't cooperate, we can't call you and check on you." I said, "Okay." Oh man! All right, that's true. That's true. All right. What else we got here? Let me close some of these. I got way too many windows open this morning here on the program. What else we got? A couple other things we can talk about. We'll talk about that, and we're going to go to the phones because I got phone calls as well. I got one line on hold. Let's see who this is, and we'll get them set up and ready for the return to radio. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Jeff from Homer. How you doing?
Hey, Jeff. Hold the line, my friend. You'll be first up in the queue when we return here. I got to pay a few bills first, but don't lose hope. I'll be to you first. You'll be the first caller out of the gate here. We're about 45 seconds away from rejoining the radio. So do me a favor. Would you share the show? Would you share the show and like this video? But share. Share is important. Likes are good. I love likes. Don't get me wrong. But sharing the show is the important part because it gets more people involved in the conversation. That's what I really need. I need more people to share the show and like and follow the show page. And then if you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you'll get notifications every time we go live. That's how we like to do. All right, my friends, let's get back into it and start the rock and roll, shall we? The Michael Duke Show. Common Sense Radio. All right, welcome back to the program. Want to remember to talk about one of our sponsors. It's the Bivvy Stick. What is the Bivvy Stick? What is this? It's a Bivvy Stick. What is that? Well, it's a fancy little device that turns your cell phone into a satellite communications device. It's what they call a short burst data device. It's about half the size of your cell phone, and it only costs $199. And when you link it, you download the app from the App Store, Play Store, or wherever. And once you plug it in and you get things rolling, it talks to your phone, and it allows you to send text messages or emails from anywhere in the world. I mean, if you could see the sky, you can get it. Uses the same Iridium satellite network that things like the Pivotel satellite phone does, except now you can connect with it. You can send emails and text messages. You can drop a pin. You can, tell people this is where I'm at. You could carry it with you when you're traveling or when you're out on the trail, and you could tell it to drop a pin every 10 minutes, every 8 minutes, every 5 minutes, every 2 minutes, so the people can track your progress. The people that you care and love about can track your progress. It's got a little special button on it that's like a check-in button that says, hey, I'm okay. Here's where I am. It's also got a little red button on it that says, oh, I've fallen and I can't get up. Come help me. I mean, it is astonishing what you can do with this little tiny device for only $199. No activation fees. You can get a plan from anywhere from the $14 a month, what I call the safety plan, all the way up to the $45 a month unlimited plan, where you can send as many texts or messages or emails as you want. You can get up to 5 days of continuous battery usage out of it. They're always coming up with new features. Things like I can't even talk about. There's some cool stuff that's coming up. You can also get weather forecasts, your aviation forecasts for you pilots. For mariners, you can get the marine forecast. And again, all of you can carry this in your pocket and be in contact no matter where you're at. I mean, when the earthquake happened back in 2018, we had some flickerings of the power and everything else, but we also I couldn't get through on the cell phones. It took me a while to get through to some calls that I was making on the cell phone towers because of congestion and the fact that some of the towers went down. If I had had a bivy stick, it was still up and rolling. That's why I said I'm buying one for my wife so she could throw it in her glove box, have the app on her phone. Something happens, she can still send me a text no matter where she's at, whether she's got cell phone signal or not. She could send me a message. I could track her. She could track me. That's what it's all about. So if you own a car or a boat or a snow machine, a plane, a train, a submarine, a unicycle, you should have one of these things on board all the time. If you want to find out more, go to your local dealer and find them at satellitewest.com. You can also find out more about that by going to satellitewest.com, clicking on the Bivy logo, or you can go to your authorized dealers in Fairbanks at Arctic Fire and Safety, London Marine Electronics in Dutch Harbor, Radar Alaska in Kodiak, South Central Radar on the Spit in Homer, Communications North in Seward, and Safe and Sound locations in Wasilla, Anchorage, or Soldotna. Thank you to Bivy Stick for sponsoring the program. And yes, you could even send a text that would say pick up some milk if you needed to. That would be the perfect thing to do. Somebody in the chat room just said that. All right, let's go back to the phones now to see what you guys have to say. I got Jeff on the line. Jeff, what's going on in your mind down in Homer?
Well, thinking about all the problems in the world, I think that Alaska and everybody involved in the legislature, the Senate, whoever gets voted in, whoever gets voted out, I don't care. But what they need to understand is we set on the largest resources in the world, sitting here with lumber, with oil, with all of this stuff. Let's start saying, okay, we're going to be kind of independent. We don't want the president telling us what to do. We're going to put in refineries. We are going to make our own gas right here. Even if we don't ship it out of here, we're going to use it here. We're going to have it cheap. People are moving here in groves. You can't buy a house in Homer. You can't buy a house anywhere. They're all gone, all right? We've got all kinds of dead lumber standing in this country. We need to get it down, stop the fire danger of it, and make it into houses and make it into lumber here. We don't need to ship lumber here. We don't need to ship oil here. We don't need to ship hardly anything. And we've got plenty of places to start growing. We need to grow more here. We need to make this place highly independent on Alaskans, because we have the will, right?
Right.
But our leaders are fumbling around, twiddling their thumbs, fighting back and forth, and it needs to stop, all of them. They need to set up, become men and women, not children down there, acting like they do, and taking home $8,000 every time they go past their time to pass a bill. Let's get some common sense bills passed. Okay, that's what you were hired for. You were not hired for the mess you're in now. And we need to get this straightened out and build a state. Okay, it's one of the proudest states in the whole union. And we have the resources here. We set on the biggest resources, and we're just twiddling our thumbs and buying Russian oil. Are you kidding me?
Well, that's what Chris By was talking about. Is the wealth is in the land. We need to need to be able to explore and export and excavate and do what we need to do. You're right. Depending on Russia, I mean, 700 million barrels a year coming out of Russia. I mean, we could have been doing that here out of Alaska, but everything starts to get shut down. I mean, the first thing that happened under Biden, it seemed like, was he started carving into our energy independence, and that's part of the problem.
Well, I say let's go, Brandon, and build some refineries here and start just making gas here, and we don't care. And our gas could be $1.50 here. We would be in a perfectly great place to be. You know, we need to shut off the Russians from any Russian crab coming in here, the whole United States. But I encourage the Dakotas, Texas, and any other place there's oil, start pumping it. You know, start making your own fuel. We can make it right here in the country. You do not have to ship it in.
Right. Well, and if we
shut them off.
Keep sending back the same group of people over and over and over again, we're going to get exactly the same thing that we've gotten. So we need to find candidates that we can trust, that we that are saying the right things, and that are moving forward and have that same vision of an independent Alaska. I agree totally.
Everywhere I go, Mike, I ask people. I said, "Would you rather have a PFD or like $6,000 credit on your borough land to buy some borough land every year?" And they go, "Yeah."
Yeah.
But they don't even, they have no prime directive. Their prime directive is to get as much money for as little done as they can and go home.
Yeah.
That's their prime directive. That's not a prime directive. That's called thievery, as far as I'm concerned in my book. Each and one and every one of them should be shamed, and they should be pulled out of office and just get rid of them, So any incumbent that's in there now, don't let them lie to you this November. Don't let them tell you they're going to do this, they're going to do that, because they haven't. They've been there. Anybody that's been there 20 years, 10 years, 15 years, 5 years, you're out.
Yeah.
Go.
Gotta go.
2 years. Nothing getting done.
Gotta go, just like me. I gotta go. Thank you, Jeff, for your call. I couldn't agree more. All right, folks, we are out of time for today. Tomorrow, Brad Keithley, Chris Story. Make sure you listen on the podcast if you missed anything this morning. It's a great interview with Elishaba Doerksen. If you want to go check it out, you can listen. Elishaba Doerksen. See? I knew I'd get it right eventually. All right, folks, out of time. Be kind to one another. Love one another. And live well. That's the best revenge right there. The Michael Duke Show. Common Sense, Liberty Bay's Free Thinking Radio. All right, my friends, we're out of here. Thank you for coming on board. I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow. Make sure you go check out Elishaba's book at elishaba.com or outofthewildernessbooks.com. We will see you tomorrow.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.